How long does it take from when you really understand the business model to the day where you close that first wholesale deal?
For me, it took me 11 months and 104 appointments. And this is not a half-ass effort. This was like me giving it everything I got. It's 110 degrees in Austin. I just had back surgery. I'm trying to make this real estate thing work. I get back into my apartment after getting told no 75 times, and I started having those limiting beliefs started coming into my mind, and then just it hit me in a second. I said, you didn't come this far to only come this far. I burned the ships of any quit in my body whatsoever. I said it was my get rich or die trying moment. Wholesale is a phenomenal model, like 0 to 8 figures. I'm getting ready to take it to the next level. I'm going to try to take it further than anybody's ever taken it. I went from living a beautiful life on the beach in Cancun to a desert, and I said, I'm not coming to the desert unless we're out here to do something great.
Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today we have Nick Perry in the house, and I just want to tell you guys a couple of things about Nick before we dive right on into it. By the way, you're going to want to stay to the very end of the podcast here. So Nick has been actually wholesaling for the same length of time that I've been wholesaling, which is a long time. So we're going to have a lot to talk about today. 11 years in the game, going on 12 years. Really a rags to riches story, which is really, really cool. I can relate to that, Nick, and I kind of came from the same boat. So we're talking about, one of the top wholesalers in the United States of America, done deals in all 50 states, coached over 750 businesses. You actually have an interesting stat, Nick. 1 out of 4 students that, you've worked with have reported that they've done over $1 million in income after going through your training, which is, really, really, really cool. I know that, there's a lot of bad stuff out there in the education world. So I'm excited to dive into how you've been able to accomplish, such success. You obviously founded the 7-figure cartel, and you've done a lot of other cool stuff. But without further ado, let's just jump right on into it.
Let's do it, man. Honored, excited to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. So, this was a podcast, Nick, that I was thinking about. Normally I do a decent amount of prep, before a podcast. And the more the research that I did on you, I told Mojay this morning, she's my wife and creative director, and I said, I really don't have to do much prep for this. I was like, I feel like I could just sit with Nick and talk for a couple of hours because I understand the industry at such a high level. And so therefore I can just take my natural curiosity into the show, and hopefully all the viewers get a ton of value. So guys, if you're watching right now, I'm about to go do a deep dive with Nick on literally everything you need to know if you want to become a legend in the game of wholesaling. So make sure you stay to the end of the podcast. We're going to go deep. And with that, Nick, maybe you can just give me a quick backstory of how did you end up in wholesaling? Like, was your family in real estate? Did you have any real estate knowledge, before you got in, or what did that evolution look like for you?
Yeah, great question. I grew up in a very middle-class America. My dad was CIA, so, government, just strict upbringing. And then when I was 13, I moved with my biological father, and we ended up living in Section 8 housing. It was rough. Lived in a 1-bedroom apartment on the couch.
Yeah.
My dad did the best he could. I love my parents, love all my parents, but during that time, it was rough. My real dad did landscaping, so he could pay the bills, and didn't have anything left over. We went to the grocery store once every 2 weeks when food would run out. You'd have to kind of fend for yourself until the next payday. So I started working at an early age. As soon as I got my worker's permit, I think I was 14, started bagging groceries, then was working at the dollar store. Got promoted to assistant manager at the dollar store. That was the highlight of my one of my first jobs. And then I got into sales. My first sales job, I was 15.
Wow.
So I was working at a cell phone authorized retailer, slinging cell phones. And it was, I was 15. It was an after school job. They thought I was 18. I don't think I put my age on the application. And so they just hired me on, and, I was doing well. A few weeks later, the manager had to go on maternity leave. So they said, hey, Nick, you're the new store manager. It's going to be $18 an hour, and you're going to get commission for the phones that you sell. Wow. And, but the catch is going to be full time. And remember, I was 15. Right. I was in 10th grade. And so I had to make a decision. Am I going to stay in school, or am I going to go to work? And I said, no, dude, I'm taking the 18 an hour, and I'm going to work.
Heck yeah.
I was checked out of school. I hated school. I was never a good student. I love playing sports. That was my favorite thing about school. And then other than that, I was checked out. So went to work full time, spent a couple years there, worked in a call center when I was like 17. During that time period, I had a lot of, I was hanging around the wrong crowd as well, getting in a lot of trouble, selling drugs, staying out past curfew, fighting, getting in all kinds of the adolescent trouble. And the one thing that like saved me from everything was sales and working out.
Wow.
Because in order to be great at sales and working out, it takes a lot of discipline. Mm-hmm. And so that was a pivotal moment, was getting in and mastering the art of sales negotiation, and also getting really into fitness and, making, my body the best that I could, and making my health the best I could. So when I was 18, I was like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And at that time I was like, I like working out. Maybe I'll become a personal trainer. So went and got my personal training certification, came out, worked at Lifetime Fitness for a little while. Then I got a job at a better studio that was training high school and collegiate and middle school athletes. And I trained like the wealthy parents as well. And all the wealthy parents were, had their kids in private schools, lived in the gated communities, were pulling up in Bentleys. I'm like, what do these people do?
Yeah.
I don't understand like how these people are making so much money. It doesn't seem like they ever really work. I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. And so, I was, before the YouTube channels were out, I used to always be like, hey, what did you do for a living to make, to be able to drive a Bentley, right? That was what I would interview my clients, and they'd be like, oh, I own a real estate company, or I own this company. And I started connecting the dots. I was like, none of these people are W-2. None of them have a job. They all own companies. So like entrepreneurship's got to be the way. It started clicking, like you can't trade time for money. And so back then I didn't have money. I didn't have credit. I didn't have any means of buying a house. And so wholesaling I qualified for.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the inspiration. And then that was, that was 12 years ago now. Wow. So it's been
so cool, dude.
Yeah.
You literally started like the same time I did, which is really cool. I'm curious, for people watching, by the way, because I know we're going to have a lot of people listen to this episode, wholesaling, for anybody who doesn't know, right, is, you're flipping the paperwork to a property, right? So you get a property under contract, instead of actually closing on that deal, you actually, what I like to call, you just flip the paperwork. You assign the contract, you double close that deal if you have to, right? And you step out, right? The new buyer steps in, and you make a fee for essentially connecting the parties, right? Connecting the seller to the cash buyer, So at what point did you hear about that concept? Because I remember the day I heard about it, right? Like I remember I was watching a Cody Sperber ad on my Facebook, right? If you're familiar with Cody, Cody's actually one of my old business partners and my first mentor, actually. And I remember him standing in front of the bank, Nick, with a check, right? In front of a Lamborghini, and which eventually I bought that Lamborghini, by the way, from him. But anyways, and he's talking about flipping houses with no money, no credit, no, you know what I mean? And I didn't believe it. I was like, that can't be true. Like I've seen Tarek El Moussa, I've seen Chip and Joanna Gaines, like, you got to have money to make money, right? Like I couldn't wrap my brain around it. So like when you first heard about it, what was your reaction to the concept of it?
Very similar. I was extremely skeptical. So I just moved down to Austin, Texas. I had a little bit of money saved up from like my personal training stuff, and I decided I wanted to move to Austin, Texas to get out of my hometown. I grew up in Northern Virginia, hated it there. So I put, my clothes in the back of my beater Mazda 3. I was broke, busted, disgusted. Went to Austin, Texas. Had enough to scrounge together for this little one-bedroom apartment, not in the greatest area of town. I couldn't afford furniture or anything, and I had to figure out my life. And I was like, well, all my personal training clients were telling me like I need to get into real estate, but I don't know how. So I got on YouTube while I was searching for jobs when I got to Austin, and I came across Sean Terry's videos.
Yeah. Sean Terry.
And Sean Terry, really started breaking down the concepts in a way that I could understand. And so I just binge watched all of his content, got my PhD in YouTube University, within a few weeks.
That's so cool, bro.
Went from there.
Flip to freedom, baby.
That's it. I literally flipped to freedom.
Yeah. Flip to freedom, man. Sean's a good dude. And you don't hear much of Sean anymore. I'd love to know what he's doing now. I feel like he's
crushing it as always.
Yeah.
I talk to him. And,
okay, do you?
And yeah, and
okay,
he's keeping a low profile because he's got the big stuff.
Yeah, I figured for sure. Yeah, I know he didn't fall off. You know, if he ain't seen, it's because he doesn't want to be seen, right?
That's right.
He's hanging out and got a house all over the place, and yeah, Sean's a good dude. So okay, so you hear about you get your PhD in YouTube University, which I love that saying, by the way. I'm going to steal that from you, and then you what do? You dive in head first, or how does that look, right? How do you like how long does it take from when you really understand the business model behind doing a wholesale deal to the day where you close that first wholesale deal? What did that time frame look like?
For me, it took me 11 months and 104 appointments.
Wow.
And this is not a half-ass effort. This was like me giving it everything I got. But I didn't have, solid mentorship. I was, couldn't comp a property properly. Didn't have a script to follow. And, the way that I started was I was handwriting yellow letters on my kitchen counter until 2:00 in the morning, stuffing envelopes, putting up bandit signs. And I would get calls. I would run out to the houses. I would fumble the appointment. And, I drove around all over Texas doing this for 11 months and 104 appointments until I got my first deal.
Dude, how did you not get, for people watching, because there's somebody watching right now, Nick, probably multiple people that are where you were, right? They're maybe 6 months into the game. They're watching this podcast right now, right? And they're frustrated, dude. Mm-hmm. They're beat up, they're frustrated, they're broke, busted, and disgusted, like you were talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And how did you mentally get through? And what would your recommendation be to the person watching who's on the verge of quitting? Like they're right on the verge of quitting, but there's something in them that has kept them going this far. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I'll just tell you a quick 30-second story of how this happened to me. I think I was on appointment like 75, right? It's 110 degrees in Austin. I just had back surgery. I'm hurt. I'm trying to make this real estate thing work. I get back into my apartment after getting told no 75 times, and I started having those voices coming to my head like, yo, maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe this whole thing is fake. Like, people are just trying to sell you a scam. Maybe other people can do it and you can't. You don't have the skill sets. And all those little, limiting beliefs started coming into my mind. And then it hit me in a second. I said, you didn't come this far to only come this far.
Yeah.
And I burned the ships of any quit in my body whatsoever. I said, it was my get rich or die trying moment.
Yeah.
It was like, either I'm going to get rich and make this happen, or I'm going to let it just kill me. I'll go, homeless and write bandit signs on cardboard boxes in the back of the, grocery store if I have to make this shit work. So I had that level of commitment. And if you don't have that level of like dog inside of you, you're not going to make it in entrepreneurship, I don't think, long-term in any venture that you do. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, bro. So it took me 9 months to get my first deal. And same thing, bro. I mean, I was, I was doing bandit signs. I mean, I have pictures on my Instagram. If you scroll far enough, you'll see me in the car at 4 a.m, on a Friday or Saturday morning, or Friday night, putting up bandit signs so they wouldn't get taken down by the city workers, right? And doing all the same crap, dude. And I was just like you, bro. I mean, I had no other choice. I think you and me are really similar in a lot of ways, actually. I grew up in a garage, just, similar to kind of your upbringing, different but similar. And, dude, wholesaling was the vehicle for me, bro. Just like you. And I'm excited to kind of dive into now how you've gotten to the point you're at. Because it's one thing to do a deal or two. It's another thing to get to where you're at today, right? Which is like doing a lot of freaking deals, right? I've seen your ads. You're what I would say probably that one, there's not very many people that dominate the pay-per-click game the way you dominate. I'm excited to talk about that here in a little while. Okay, so now, boom, 11 months in, you get your first deal, right?
Yep.
And do you remember what you made on that deal, by the way?
$12,000.
$12,000. Yep. And what did you do? Did you drive to the title company and pick up the check, or did they wire it? You drove to the title company.
Yep.
Okay, just like I did, right?
Sat down at closing, got the pictures, the whole thing.
Yeah, and you held that thing in your hand, and you're probably like, damn. Like, that was the day for you, right? Because it was for me. Like when you held that check where you're like, if I could do it one time, I could do it 1,000 times.
Yeah, I was like, it's game over now. And by this time, I found a job. So I was working full-time at Indeed.com, and I was doing wholesale nights and weekends.
Got it.
So I was broke when I got to Austin, broke. Yeah. And then I knew I had to like get a job in order to keep this dream alive. And that was, Indeed took a flyer on me and brought me in to do inside sales for them, which was a huge blessing. I went from like having $800 in my account to making like $250,000 a year.
Dang.
Rookie of the year, Top Gun, top of the leaderboards. They're flying me on company trips. And what I did was I just stayed disciplined with that money from my 9 to 5. Still lived in the 1-bedroom apartment, ate chicken out of the crock pot, Walmart, Target, all that. I didn't do anything to my lifestyle. And I took all the money that I had from my day job and I poured it into my real estate business.
Yeah.
So I invested in mentorship. I took money, invested into marketing. So that first check that I got, it was just a checkbox. That was proof of concept. I took all that money, rolled it right back into marketing. And guess what? Deal like 2, 3, 4, 5 came like that.
Wow. Dude, so cool, bro. And I love the discipline aspect of it, right? Because that's where I think most people get it wrong nowadays. I feel like it was a little bit easier for you and me because social media wasn't as prevalent back then. So I feel like we weren't comparing as much as people do today, right? But the problem is today, I think, Nick, is that you start making 250 grand a year, and you start comparing all these people on the internet, and you're like, I need a Ferrari, I need a bigger apartment, I need nicer pair of shoes, I need a better looking suit, I need a new AP or a presidential or whatever the case is, and before you know it, your cost of living is going up at the same rate as your income, and you never actually get ahead, and then you end up stuck in that 9 to 5, and you could have never made that transition that you ended up making to wholesale full time had you not had a little bit of padding in the bank account, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, and I was extremely intentional. And when I went in and took that 9 to 5, I said, the faster I can go in and crush it at this job, the faster I can get out and be my own man. I've always been like, I'm the classic entrepreneur. Like, I don't want to listen to anybody. I want to call my own shots. And so I couldn't imagine, working for somebody the rest of my life. Like, that was prison to me. So I was like, it was like my Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
I was just, making my way, out of prison essentially.
Yep. Heck yeah, dude. Yeah, you're unemployable like me.
Exactly.
That's what I always tell. I think I have a sweatshirt somewhere that says unemployable, I'm like, you can't employ me. I'm just not employable.
Correct.
Like, it's not going to work, right? Okay, so how long, Nick, did you wholesale solo before you said it's time to build a team? And then I want to walk through that evolution of like who your first hire was, if you could go back and do it again. So we'll get to all that. But how many deals would you say you did where it was just you out there banging away doing wholesale deals?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a war story because I think this will resonate with a lot of you guys getting started out here.
Cool.
So in the beginning, I was hiring friends, girlfriends, anybody that would give me some help, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people that can work with their spouse or their best friend, but I don't do that anymore because I don't want to put my relationships in the line of fire of my business, right? I've learned that lesson a couple times. Like one lesson, so my first person working for me was my ex-girlfriend at the time. Yeah. And she was, she got laid off from Oracle. So I told her, okay, come work for me. Take the, seller calls while I'm at Indeed, and, we'll crush it. And we were doing like 3-4 deals a month, and
she was your ex at the time.
Yeah, so I dated her for like 11 months.
Okay.
Dated her for 11 months, and I remember I told her, I said, hey, we went on a trip to Mexico, and she was a mess. She was smoking weed, taking Xanax, drinking. I was like, I got to cut this girl off. Like,
yeah.
This is no good. And so I got back to Austin, and I was like, all right, well, I need to be smart about this because she's living in my house. She's got access to my business checking because she had to move money around.
Yeah.
So I went and I pulled money out of him. I pulled $12,000 out because I was just going to give her like a severance, like just to pay her out. And long story short, she did not take it well at all because I told her, hey, we're breaking up. Sorry, it's not working. I said, here's some money. She went crazy and ended up calling an attorney. And in Texas, there's such thing as common law. So it doesn't matter how long you date somebody in Texas. It could be 3 days, 3 months, 3 years, whatever. If they live in your house, if they get a piece of mail there, or if they have any sort of tie to you financially, then you have to go through a formal divorce.
Really?
It's called common law marriage.
No way.
So she went and she got an attorney who was her uncle that was working pro bono for her. And I ended up, thinking I was going to beat her in court. So I hired like the best family law attorney, and they just ended up bleeding me dry in court. I ended up, having some money saved up. I had a couple $100,000 saved up in the bank, torched my bank account all the way down to like, $7,000 trying to fight it because I had to give her on my apartment. I had to give her my cars. I just bought all brand new furniture because I just moved. Lost everything. But the one thing that I held on to, because they were trying to take it all. Like they were trying to take everything, even the business from me. I said, you guys have the cars, you can have the furniture, you have the apartment, you can have it all, but you're not taking my fucking business. You're not taking my CRM. You're not taking my website. And so I retained that. I was like, you have everything else. I could start over. So I literally went and just kept hustling, got more deals in, got a new place, and then built myself back up. So that was a big setback for me.
Yeah, huge, bro.
I was only like a couple years into wholesaling, and so that was a big, lesson. I was like, wow, I don't want to go through that again.
And the lesson there, just now, hindsight's 2020, right? For people watching, it's like I would imagine the one-liner that you would tell people now is like, be very selective of who you bring into to sit at the dinner table with you.
Yeah, and is your relationships with your girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, best friend, is it worth putting in that relationship in the line of fire of business, right?
True. Yeah, totally, dude. And it is tough because I do work with my spouse, and it, dude, it is not for the faint of heart. Now we do different things, so we set it up in a different way. But I totally agree with you, bro. I mean, I think that if you're not very, very, very intentional about how you go about it, it ain't going to work. And I think, it's like if you're both, Christian and stuff like that, I think that helps because you kind of fall back on like the word.
Absolutely.
And you're like, okay, what do we get? Let's like, what does God want us to do here?
That's right.
But I totally agree with you, man. I've tried it before her with another girl, and it did not freaking work. It was terrible, right? So I'm with you there. Cool. So you do all that, right? And now you got to rebuild again, right? It's kind of that story. It's so funny too, Nick. The majority of people that I've interviewed, I've actually had a couple billionaires sit right where you're sitting, and a lot of very successful people. You never meet anybody that is successful where it was like the trajectory of where they were to where they are was linear. It's never linear, right? There's always like this crazy, like if you were to draw it out on a freaking piece of paper, it's like this crazy up and down where you like make a bunch of money, you lose everything, you make it back again. And then some people, they have to lose it multiple times before they actually like really make it, right? So what was that like for you? Was that the time, or were there more times after that where you had to go through similar type of experiences where you had to kind of make big mistakes and have a big setback and then make a comeback?
Yeah, I mean, in business, that because it was so early on, that was like catastrophic at the time, and I made it through. But I mean, every day we're dealing with difficult situations, and it's the old cliche saying is don't expect life to get easier, you get better.
Yeah.
Right? So things that would have crippled me years ago is like just another day in the office now. So that's how entrepreneurship goes, is you're gonna try something. On the first attempt, you're usually gonna fail.
Yep.
You're gonna learn from it. You're gonna try again. You'll probably fail again on the second attempt, and you just keep learning and getting better. And it's this continual loop of improvement as you go on. Yeah. And if you keep doing that over a long period of time, you get pretty good at something, Yeah, that's why we've been doing this 11 years, so we've dedicated a long time to be able to become experts in this field.
Yeah, it's like probably, I think what is the average like American like workforce length of time? Probably like 50 years or something in the workforce. So I mean, a fifth of our total of how much we're going to work in our life has already been dedicated to the game of wholesaling.
Probably more than that, man.
Real estate.
I tell everybody in work years, I'm like 65, 70 years old.
I feel you there, bro. Yeah, because you learned so much. You scaled so quickly. You've hired so many people. You've spent, I can't wait to start talking about pay-per-click and stuff in a little while, but you spent millions of dollars, right? And anytime you do that, you learn a lot of freaking crap along the way, right?
Of course.
So back to the question a minute ago, just so we can kind of move through the evolution, how many deals do you think you did before you really got like, let's say like a real team? Because I'm kind of like you too, right? Where I've built multiple different teams. I've had multiple partners along the way. I've like shut shop down, reopened it again with a different name and different people, So when was it like where you really got the real team in place and you really started to make like big boy money,
2017, 2018 was a big turning point. So I was able to quit my full-time job, and then I started hiring a team. So my first like actual real employee was my intern at Indeed.
Oh, wow.
So I had an intern when I was there, and he would shadow me. He would prospect leads for Indeed, but then he'd see me click over a few tabs and get on my real estate CRM and lock up a deal. And he was really interested in real estate, but I didn't pay much mind to it. And after his internship was over, he got hired to a different team. I didn't really talk to him much. He saw what I was doing. 6 months later, after I left Indeed, he called me. He was like, "Hey, man, I'm doing great at this job, but I can't see myself doing this the rest of my life. Are you hiring?" And I was like, "Oh, man, I know you're making like $140 a year with 401k benefits, HSA, FSA." I said, "No, I mean, you can come be like a leads manager for me for $500 a week." And I thought, he was going to dismiss it. He calls me back the next day. He's like, "Look, man, I put a lot of thought into it. Can we meet?" He quit his job and became a leads manager for me. Meanwhile, taking care of his mom, his brothers, and put himself in credit card debt to come work for me.
Wow.
So put himself in massive credit card debt, and I gave him the worst jobs you could have, like taking inbound RVM calls to your cell phone. Just the worst of the worst things you can do in our business. He did and never complained, never cried, just kept doing it. And I promoted him to an acquisitions, and he ended up doing well in that position. So as we brought in new acquisitions, he rose the ranks and would be like a team lead. And then he went from like a team lead on acquisitions to a COO. So he oversaw AC and Dispo.
Okay.
And then he was COO for 3 years, and now he was promoted in 2021, and he's the acting CEO of my real estate company.
No way, dude.
His name is Brandon. Yeah, he's if he wasn't doing stuff right now in the real estate business, he would probably be here hanging out.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So he's still with you
9 years later.
All of these years later. Wow, really cool, dude. Really cool. Okay, cool. So what I want to talk about now is I know you're known for pay-per-click, dude. I mean, I think I remember the first time, I don't know who told me about you initially. It might have been, I think it was Robert Winsley, actually. It was like, "Yo, you got to check out Nick Perry, Then obviously now it's convenient. You just moved here, right? Like literally you're right across the street. We were talking about it before the show. Nick's now in the Grant Cardone building, which is pretty cool, right? And we're directly in front of that. I'll just give a bit of a backstory. So with my company, Nick, and I'm sure after the show, I'll take you out there and show you, I have 4 different departments. So I have direct to seller department, okay, which is where we're doing marketing to bring in leads. And so anybody in that department, they only do direct to seller, okay? And then I've got what we call the supplier department, which is really just co-wholesaling, right? So you got a couple guys in there, and all they do all day long is bring in deals from other wholesalers all around the nation, and then we sell them for them, right? And we just split the profit. So that's the supplier department. That third department is going to be our agent department. So those guys are only getting deals from real estate agents around the nation, right? And then our fourth department is our dispositions department, and they're responsible for selling the deals of all 3 other departments, okay?
Got it.
The 3 ACT departments bring the deals in. Dispo, all they do is sell deals all day long from the 3 departments that bring those deals in, right? Now, but I'm like you. I really did direct to seller for a long time. That was my bread and butter. I had like 35 cold callers at one point. We were buying like 1 million records at a time, skip tracing it, but I never really did pay-per-click at the level that you're doing it. And I think that what you've done is actually really impressive, and a lot of people can't figure it out. Like you see a lot of people that they do pay-per-click or like pay-per-lead or whatever, but mostly pay-per-click. They do it for 3 months. They don't do a deal. They blow 50 grand and they quit. They give up. They're like, it doesn't work, right? Like I can't figure it out. So when did you really go all in on like direct to seller? Was that the first thing that you did? Because I know you were doing bandit signs and like yellow letters. Did it go from that to pay-per-click and that kind of became your bread and butter? And like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it happened pretty quick. In 2014, I was doing all the direct mail and bandit signs. And then I was like, dude, I got to be able to figure out how to get these people online.
Right.
And
because it's not scalable.
Yeah.
The bandit signs and stuff. I mean, you can only put out so many, right? Yeah.
And so 2014, did what I did, when I got into wholesaling. I got back on YouTube.
Yep.
And I found some obscure YouTube channel of some guy that was teaching pay-per-click for real estate investing.
Wow.
And I went and just cold emailed him and said, hey, I'm going to be in Danbury, Connecticut. That's where he was living. And I said, can I pay you to take you out to lunch? And I never expected a response back. Well, he responded back and was like, yeah, I'm available next Tuesday. Meet me at this pizza shop. And so I was like, oh, shit, I got to book a flight. So I booked a flight to JFK. I rented a car, drove 3.5 hours into the middle of the mountains, met him. It was snowing like crazy.
Wow.
And we hit it off. I ended up, I had an envelope with $2,000. And I said, hey, will you mentor me and can you do a few Zoom calls with me and show me the ropes? And he agreed.
Wow.
And so he showed me the basics on PPC. That was the foundational knowledge. Yeah, that was 10 years ago now, but that got me going. And that's when I started running pay-per-click. And then I was like, well, this is way more efficient than any of the other marketing that I'm running.
Yeah.
And so it vastly became my preferred marketing channel.
Sure.
Yep.
And fast forward to today, is PPC still your main lead generation thing that you do?
Correct.
Okay,
That's it.
Cool. And do you do anything else, or is pay-per-click just the biggest one that you do?
Yeah, I mean, pay-per-click, and then we'll supplement with pay-per-lead.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we have consistent lead flow every single week.
Yep.
But we're, primarily PPC.
Which is really cool, dude. I mean, I love that, actually. And I'm actually, when we're done with the show, I want to pick your brain and figure out if there's a way that we can work together, because I want to dominate pay-per-click at a little bit of a higher level. Doesn't even have to be in the same markets as you. I'll pick different markets, but, and I've just never quite been able to find the right guy, because I'm at a place where I just don't have the time to learn the back end of Google. And so it's I need to find somebody to help me, And now you got Brent Daniels and multiple people out there rolling out pay-per-click services for other entrepreneurs, right? So are you doing that, by the way, at all? Are you helping other wholesalers do it?
No, I'll teach you how to fish, but I'm not fishing for you.
Got it. Okay, yeah, makes sense. So you'll just mentor people, kind of like your mentor did for you.
Correct.
Yeah, I love it, dude. What would you say with pay-per-click? The reason is, if you had to say, I know we could spend 3 hours talking about pay-per-click alone, right? But if you had to give maybe a reason or two of why most people fail, why do you think that would be?
I mean, the reason most people fail is, one, you don't have the right information.
Okay.
Right? Don't go in there and just start, setting up campaigns after you watch a YouTube video. Find somebody that's already doing it at a high level and get the coaching and mentorship. That's, number one. Number two, I'll tell you that we're not doing rocket science here. If you can run cold calling, you can pull lists, list stack, keep all that data, dialed in, you will definitely be able to run pay-per-click. I think at a very third grade level. I'm a high school dropout. So, I don't come from a marketing background. I was a personal trainer. So I think that, people also are very intimidated by it. They will start and then, they don't know what they're really doing, what metrics to measure. And so they pause things too early, or they don't set up the bid strategy properly.
Sure.
And if you know what you're doing, it's not scary.
Yeah.
It's just like anything else, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little bit of insight? And I know you're not going to give away every secret right on the podcast. I get that. But when you're looking at a pay-per-click or, doing any type of ads, to put in front of people, is there, you hear a lot of people that are don't go into rural areas, right? Because it's impossible to sell a deal. You'll get a deal in the middle of freaking nowhere, but you can't sell the damn thing. So don't waste your money, right, on ads in that type of area. Or you'll hear people say stay away from this market entirely, or stay away from that market entirely. Have you learned any kind of little nitty gritty tricks over the years of the kind of fundamentals of you don't want to do rural, or that type of thing?
Absolutely. So we do I've done deals in all 50 states.
Yep.
Rural, we make a lot of money in rural markets
because nobody else is doing it.
Towns you've never heard of.
Yeah.
But there's not going to be any cash buyers there.
Sure.
You got to be able to either wholesale them or novate them. So if we go to a little town that's 20,000 people, but the pending activity is through the roof, then I know that, okay, properties are moving here. There might not be cash buyers, investors that are looking to flip houses or landlord in this place, but the retail market is on fire. Okay, well, what are my exit strategies in that situation? You can either take it down yourself, put it up on the market, or you can go ahead and novate it, which we do a lot of novations, and we wholesale a lot of properties.
Got it.
So in those rural markets, those are going to be your best exit strategies.
Okay.
Don't try to force it to a cash buyer, in the next neighboring city that's an hour and a half away.
Sure.
It's not
going to work. Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about Novations and wholetailing? Because I think, I've obviously had Rich Wonders on the podcast. I'm sure you're familiar with him, the Novation King, right?
Yeah.
And, I think Novations are really interesting, and I think that like we've done quite a few of them, obviously, but it's definitely not our bread and butter. Like, how many would you say if you were to take like 100 deals that you guys do that you get to the finish line, how many would be wholesale deals versus like how many would be like Novations and like wholetail?
60% wholesale, and then 40% would be Novation and wholetail.
Okay, so
then we buy rentals as well. So.
You buy rentals. Okay, cool. So the majority is in fact wholesale.
Correct.
Yeah, which is same with me, right?
Yeah.
Because that's really where the bread and butter of the actual business is going to come from, right? Is making that quick check. There's something. I own the largest retail real estate team in the state. We're soon to be the largest in the nation on the retail side. So I have 250 agents on my team, right? That's a separate company from my wholesale company. And, the thing about it's so fascinating because the two, they go such hand in hand together, right? Like people don't realize. I forget where I was even going with that, but I'll circle back in a little while. So, okay, cool. So you do a lot of wholesale, you do Novations, you do wholetail. Now, do you focus on rural or do you just take the rural deal when it comes in? Like, is it like, hey, I'm actually going to intentionally try to bring in some rural stuff? Or is it just like, if it comes in, I'll do it?
Yeah, yes. And so the way that I market, I originally started nationwide.
Sure.
So people know me like, hey, Nick does nationwide wholesaling. Yes.
Yep.
I've set up my campaigns before where they're nationwide, and that's great. You get leads from everywhere, but it's going to be your lowest quality. The way that we do it is we pick a cluster of states at a time.
Okay.
So typically I have between 7 to 11 states running at a time, and it rotates based on where the hot markets are, the pending activity.
Got it.
So I'm constantly rotating. Every quarter we're looking at the sales data and figuring out where is the highest pending activity, and that's where we're rotating. Like for instance, Florida has always been a great state for me. 2024 got rocked with 2 hurricanes.
Yeah.
Insurance prices doubled over there. The COVID boom or the bubble bursted, so a lot of people stopped moving to Florida, and it took a correction for about 18 months in Florida.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? I looked at the sales data last week, and Florida is back. It's back up. So now I just turned Florida back on.
Back on, yeah.
Right?
Got it. Yep.
So I'm always looking where the hot markets are. But to answer your question, leads are going to come in from anywhere if you don't set exclusions on your campaigns.
Got it. Yep.
So I don't recommend just running nationwide with no exclusions because you're going to be getting stuff in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains that there's not much you can do with it. Even there's not even any retail people out there.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. That makes sense. So, okay. I think this is really, really good for people watching. I want to dive in a little bit. I get asked a lot, Nick, I'm sure you do, like how to structure the business itself when it comes to like hiring people. What types of roles and positions do you have in your company? There's a lot of people that I think get stuck. Like they figure out how to do a deal or two, and then they kind of hit a brick wall. They're like, what do I do now? Like, how do I scale, right? Like, how do I actually get to like a consistent business? Because you see so many people in our industry for whatever reason that they're just on this roller coaster, bro. I see it all the time. They'll have like a really good month and the next month's just garbage, and they have a really good month and the next month's garbage, and they can't ever figure out how to just do it consistently, right? And I think you do that by building a team, building systems and processes, setting up your company in a way where it's actually a company, not just like a you in your living room type of thing like you see a lot nowadays, right? What types of like roles have you found, that you have worked really well, in terms of like, do you have setters, is it just the act guys, and they do their own like initial call, or does it get passed to the act guy? And like, what are the main kind of roles that you like to have in your company?
Yeah, great question. So if you're a solopreneur out there, you're looking to scale a company, first 2 hires that I recommend is going to be in acquisitions to help you take lead flow.
Yep.
To start talking to sellers, making offers right alongside with you, and then an executive assistant to get all of the other administrative work and $20 an hour task off your plate, right? So you can just focus on high revenue generating activities. That's going to help you out a lot. Then the next hire after those two people is going to be another acquisitions.
Okay.
So
no dispo in the beginning.
No, you're going to be doing dispo, and one of the things your executive assistant can help you out with is some administrative work on dispo transactions in the beginning.
Sure. They
can, play multiple different roles for you to really help you. So if you find a really strong executive assistant in acquisitions, you're off to the races. Now you got another acquisition. So you got two acquisitions, yourself and your executive assistant. Well, what's going to happen when you have two acquisitions is now you're going to start getting pretty pinned down in dispo. So you and your executive assistant are going to start working heavier on the dispositions and transaction side of things. You're also going to be managing your AC. Like, that's the whole trick on why people can't scale, is because you're trying to spin multiple plates at the same time.
Sure.
Right? And that's why they have inconsistencies. Is they'll lock up a bunch of deals, then they'll get busy on dispo, they'll pause marketing, and so they can't get the plates spinning all at the same time. This is how you get the plates spinning.
Got it.
Yep. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
Start there, and then it'll start scaling out.
Would you recommend, bro, that people in the beginning, like when they're just getting started, should they even try to do dispo at all, or should they just work with a big dispo house, or like another guy like you, or like me, or Keegley, or whatever, right? Like Jameel, like should they just split their deals with somebody else so they don't even have to worry about it in the beginning? Or like at what point do you think they should even try to dispo their own deals?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I did in the beginning. I was like, okay, I can generate the leads and I can get these things under contract, but then the dispo, that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to.
It's almost a whole nother business.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I JV'd with people in the beginning, and then eventually I didn't have to JV anymore.
Sure, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have enough money in the bank, you have the knowledge, now you can build it on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good strategy, rather than trying to bite off too much at one time. Focus on AC, and then JV with people, and then eventually start bringing the dispo in-house.
Sure, yeah. Dude, I mean, I did that for a long time, man. I mean, I did not do dispo for many years. I mean, it wasn't a priority for me. I got really good at AC, like you're talking about, and I was just like, dude, I don't care if I'm giving up 50 or whatever % of the deal, because I'm doing twice as many deals. So it all kind of levels out. Like and I kind of thought about it. Now we do it, of course, but there were so many years where I'm like, dude, why would I, in order to build dispo, I got to go spend a bunch of money. I kind of did the math on it. I was like, it's probably going to be about the same amount of money to go build that whole department than it is just to JV my deal with somebody. And then eventually it shifts, and it's like, okay, I would actually be making more money. Right. But it's not really until you get to doing a lot of volume where you would actually make more money building dispo in-house. Because dispo is a bit of a hard, even with Investor Lift, and we love Robert Winsley, right? And Investor Lift's one of the greatest dispo tools, I believe, on planet Earth, and we'll link that down below, by the way, for you guys. But even with that, it's still a lot of work, dude.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got to friggin' pound the phone, and you got to make it happen. I mean, people think I'll send an email, my deal will sell.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Dude, not at all, bro. Yeah. Do you use Investor Lift?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was one of the first users on Investor Lift.
Were you really? Okay. Yeah, I love Robert. Have you hung out with him a bunch since you've been down here?
We keep missing each other. We've been in and out of town, but we're on each other's radar.
He's got the Virginia house now.
I know.
Yeah, he's all over the map. He started a family, he's a busy guy for sure. He lives right here.
Yeah, I've been to his house multiple times.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's where I live right now too. I think that at the end of the day, wholesaling is simple. I like what you said a little while ago. You're like, Austin, it's not rocket science, bro. You're like, it's just you just gotta do the steps. You've gotta, just follow the formula, right? There's so many people like you on the internet that are giving people the freaking blueprint, and yet people still manage to screw it up. You know?
Yeah. And I think that's why I succeeded, is because it's not rocket science, and I was very singularly focused on one thing for a long time. I was a one-trick pony with wholesaling.
Sure.
For many years. I didn't jump off and try to do short-term rentals or do creative financing or try to start flipping property or buying rentals. None of that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can make money. Let me do it again. I'm telling you, I think at a very third grade level, it's just every single day, just work hard, try to get a little bit better at this one particular craft. And I think that is a huge reason why I was able to master it. And now people are like, oh, yeah, you're the best. And I was like, man, I dedicated my entire life to this shit. So hopefully I'm pretty good at it,
Yeah, dude. And I agree, man. I think there's so many people, dude, that they're trying to do too much crap. It's like, bro, pick a strategy and run. right? Like you can't do, if you're brand new, you can't be doing sub 2 and novation and wholesale and flip and section 8. It's just no freaking way you can. I see so many people try to do that, right?
Pick a lane.
Pick a lane. You could do all that eventually, when you have a big team and you can, hire people and you have the money and the bandwidth to be able to handle all that, but you can't do it in the beginning.
No.
I'm still at a place today where I have to really be very selective about what we do and what we don't do. Because even with as big of an operation as we run, if I'm not really careful, dude, if we start going and trying to do too much novation or we try to do too much sub 2 or like in 2024, I think I probably flipped one too many houses. And every time I do that, man, I always realize I'm like, I should have just not done that. I should have just built the thing that I'm really good at even bigger, instead of that whole thing. So what is your goal with wholesaling? And I have a question that I've been asking a couple of the wholesalers lately on my podcast. Like, do you think that wholesaling is infinitely scalable, or is there a cap? Right? Like, is this an industry, I had, Eric Klein on the show, right? Eric.
Yeah.
And Eric is kind of the first guy to ever come out publicly and say, I sold my wholesale company, right? And so I think we talked about that on the show. I've never heard anybody say that before Eric. Keegley was the only company that, they franchised, which is a form of an exit, right? And I know Josiah and Jameel and them really well, and they're great guys. Do you think wholesaling is a means to an end? When you get to a place like where you're at today, is it with the mindset of, okay, I just got to make $500,000 a month or $1 million a month, and then just take that cash, treat it like a cash flow company, and go park it over somewhere else to grow even bigger? Or do you think you can scale to infinity and beyond with wholesale?
Yeah, I think that wholesale, I put a lot of thought into this, by the way.
Okay.
So wholesale is a phenomenal model, like 0 to 8 figures. I think that there's fundamentally some things that prevent it from being like a 9-figure company, but I think you can get it up like easily to a couple $1 million, not easily, but you can get it up to a couple $1 million a month.
Sure.
The problem with wholesale in real estate is that you have a very long sales cycle.
Yep.
So it's not like somebody swiping a credit card
Right.
and then you can pay commissions. So you're having to float expenses for a long time. So that is one of the challenges. But like where I'm at right now, I'm getting ready to take it to the next level. I'm going to try to take it further than anybody's ever taken it.
Good for you, dude.
I just moved here from Cancun, Mexico.
Yep.
I went from living a beautiful life on the beach in Cancun to a desert, and I told my team, I'm not coming to the desert unless we're out here to do something great.
Yeah.
So, do I think that it can be scalable to where you've got a really large acquisitions team, you've got dispo transactions, you've got customer service managers, and you can crush this thing for $2-3 million a month? I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, I love it, dude. I love that answer because that gives hope, I think, to a lot of people that really do want to take it to the stars. You know what I mean? Because and there's not going to be a ton to do that, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, it's cool to know and see. Because I agree with you, dude. I think fundamentally, like, I don't know why do you think? You said there's some fundamental reasons why you don't think it could go 9 figures. Like, what? Give me like 1 or 2. Well, the sales cycle.
You have the sales cycle. I mean, the numbers are tough. Like when you deal with, if you take 10 deals, 3 or 4 of them are going to have
Problems.
incurable titles, seller issues, and so you have to factor that in, and it takes a very skilled operator in order to get it to that level. I think that now I'm at a position where we're already moving in that direction, but I have competent help. Like I have a CEO, I have a COO, I have a sales director, right? I have a lot of core leadership that is going to help me get there.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to do this by yourself and you're trying to be, the whole C-suite, it's difficult to manage all of that. Because again, it's back to the analogy, you're trying to spin too many plates.
Yeah.
So you got to have the right structure in order to do it.
Yeah, you got to treat it like a company.
Correct.
I think there's too many wholesalers that they're not treating it like a real business. They're just not, dude.
They're treating it like a hobby.
They're treating it like a hobby.
Yeah.
And they're at home in their living room, They've got a Lamborghini, but they live in an apartment and
not tracking their KPIs at all.
They don't have an office,
right?
They do everything online, everything virtual, And I'm not hating. Look, if your goal is just to make 30, 40, 50K a month and you're cool and you're big chilling, great. Hey, by all means, all freaking power to you, man. But if you want to get to the big boy level, right? Like the numbers that you're talking about, where we're talking about 7 figures a month, right? Those are no joke numbers. You need an office, you need a team. You need real infrastructure, right? Like you need real crap, and you got to treat it like a real company, like the C-suite, like you're talking about, right? Like the executives and the different people that do the different things. You talk about Brandon is his name. Yeah, he's been with you for 9 years. He's worn a lot of hats along the journey, right? And now he's your CEO, which is really cool, dude. And I have a CEO. I'm no longer the CEO of my wholesale company, right? And I think that's what allows guys like you and me to be sitting in the podcast set right now, filming a video, and our companies are still rolling. Right?
Exactly.
Like there's still you probably done a deal since you've been sitting here, and I probably done a deal since I've been sitting here.
Yeah.
Right. And we're just hanging out, dude. So I totally agree, man. What's the next you say you're buying rentals, right? Is that kind of the evolution for you? What's that next kind of like? Where are you going to take your money now, and what are you going to do? Is it just build a massive portfolio? Is it eventually doing like what Grant Cardone is doing? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. So yeah, real estate's always going to be a part of my strategy. It's what brought me to the dance.
Sure.
And I'm a firm believer, like what brought you to the dance, you always keep doing that, right? Where like I'm getting right now, I'm buying a commercial HVAC company.
Oh, cool.
Right. So I have even bringing my wholesale company to multiple 7 figures a month. That's a stepping stone for me to where I ultimately want to go.
Yeah.
Professionally and financially. So I'm in mergers and acquisitions to where, I'm acquiring companies. So I acquired another education company earlier this year. I'm buying a commercial HVAC deal.
Oh, cool.
Right now. So I'm going after a roll up in the HVAC space. So there's that's where I see being able to do a multiple 9-figure exit.
Sure.
Is
totally.
There.
Home services.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm playing big in that space. Because if I put the same time, energy, and attention into that as I do into my wholesaling, then we're gonna be able to reap a lot more rewards in a shorter period of time.
That's the truth.
Yes.
Yeah. Home services. I love that industry, man. I really do. I mean, I have a lot of buddies. Cameron Bodden is a good buddy of mine. He just sold Green Mango pest control for a really healthy amount of money. I'll tell you when we're done. And he got mentored by Tommy Mello, who owns A1 Garage, right? Yep. And so, and then I obviously know Cody Sperber and all them. They just started Floor Daddy with Tommy Mello as a partner of that. So these home service companies, Jordan Beebe and Brittany Beebe, I did a whole podcast and business tour with them. They just sold a plumbing company a couple years ago for like something stupid. I mean, just like you'd be kind of blown away. And it's just crazy, bro. I mean, and they're recession proof.
Correct.
It's like, it doesn't matter what's happening in the stock market. If your toilet's broken, bro, you're calling a plumber.
And it's AI proof,
Right.
Like AI is not coming to fix your toilet anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
Until humanoid robotics are way
more advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it ain't going to happen anytime soon.
No.
I saw a tweet the other day by Elon. He was talking about the human hand, because they're trying to like get their robots to like do, and he's like, the tweet was basically saying like the human hand is wild. He's like, it's going to take a long time to get a robot's like hand
that has that dexterity
to do what our human hand can do. I mean, if you really think about it, it's crazy. It's not going to be anytime soon, dude.
No.
I love it, man. I love talking to guys like you, and I think that, there's so much. I think wholesaling is such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful business model, right? Because, I'm like you. I didn't go to college, right? I barely graduated high school. I mean, I probably shouldn't have graduated. I had other people do a lot of my homework for me, but
that is a trait of successful entrepreneurs,
right,
though.
Yeah.
You know how to delegate.
Exactly.
I think that is one of my the traits that my mom tells me this all the time. She's like, that's why you're successful, is because you would always get everybody else to do all your work for you.
That's so funny. Dude.
So
it's the truth, though, man. It's the truth, and I'm right there with you, man. I mean, I'm not the shiniest marble in the box, dude. I'm just not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not. I have a lisp. But I think that guys like you and me, we have a bit of a chip on our shoulder. We want to win, and we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And I think there's people watching right now that can relate to that. And I just wanted to interview you so badly because I knew how similar we were. I can see just like by watching what you do. And I know it's just, I wish I would have had more podcasts like this in like 2014 when I got into the game.
Oh my gosh. Hindsight's always 2020, right?
Dude, there was
I feel
nothing
we're
like
like
this.
the OGs. Like we used to walk uphill both ways to school. Like,
Totally.
but it was a lot harder. The access to information now, like there's literally no excuse.
None.
For why you can't go out and crush it.
None.
Yeah.
Dude, like there was nothing like this back in the day. Like you had to pay for a mentor. Like there might have been a couple of videos or two, but it wasn't like long form podcasts doing a deep dive into like how to hire and run pay-per-click and like the different departments and how to scale. And like there was none of that crap.
Didn't
know?
exist.
I love it, man. Tell me just a little bit, before we wrap here. I know we've been here a little over an hour already. Talk to me a bit about your 7-figure cartel. What is that, and what do you do for people? Who's that a good fit for? Like if somebody's watching and they're like, man, I really like this Nick dude, I'd like to get mentored by him. Is that what that is all about?
Yeah. So it goes back to what we were just saying. Like, hindsight's always 2020. If I knew,
Sure.
if I knew what I knew back then, I would be way further along. Like I'm a firm believer that mentorship is the only shortcut, real shortcut in business to collapse like decades into days.
Right.
So, it's literally everything that I know broken down into video modules, department by department.
I love that.
So everything that I know about marketing, acquisitions, dispositions, how to comp properties, like in a, essentially a library of content that you can go through.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, we jump on Zoom with you 3 days a week to make sure you can't screw it up. So
yeah,
we're literally helping you, grabbing you by the hand through all the implementation. And that's why, 1 out of 4 people, self-report doing over $1 million, and the rest of them are, doing great. If you come in and you apply yourself, you're gonna crush.
Yep.
So it's almost like a franchise because I'm giving you my entire business in a box. I give you all the scripts, contracts, you name it, spreadsheets, everything that we use. You get access to my CRM that I've painstakingly built out for a decade.
Yeah.
With weekly calls with developers, you can just take the latest version of it and run with it. So it's a really powerful mentorship, and I'm very proud of the results we've got from it. And we're still continuing to build that out. So it's for guys that are serious. You got to be active in the game. If you're just looking around, not sure if you're for wholesaling, go take somebody else's newbie class. But if you're ready to rock and roll, you want to get to the big leagues and you don't want to waste time, then reach out to us.
I love it, dude. I love it. And where do people find that? They just hit you up on IG?
Yeah, there's a link in my bio. You can book a call with my team and just talk shop, see if it's a good fit.
Cool. I love it. And it's Nick Perry on Instagram. What's the handle?
It's just Nick Perry REI.
Nick Perry REI. And I'll link that down below too for
Yep.
everybody watching. Dude, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I feel like now that you're across the street, we should probably like make more content, together.
100%.
And just hang out. I'd love to come hang out in your office.
Please.
You're welcome to come here literally anytime.
Yeah.
Bring your team. Your team can meet my team if they want. I mean,
That'd be great.
I'm all about collaboration, dude. Like I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you are, that there's plenty to go around, dude, for guys like you and me, and we could both achieve our goals and be collaborating together. So
abundance mindset.
Yeah, totally, bro. Well, I appreciate you being here. If you're still watching, make sure you go follow Nick. Okay, I'm going to link all of his information down below. Like he just mentioned, right? If you want to, if you're already doing a bunch of deals and you want to really scale to where he's at, make sure you check out his mentorship and stuff with the link in that bio. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below. Make sure you give us a follow, and we'll see you in the next one.